Hi, my name is Thomas and you're watching Casual DIY channel. In today's episode I will be painting the ceiling and the walls of my garage that will become eventually a fully fledged workshop. Check out the video. Now, as with everything, painting may seem to be a very simple task, but you need the right tools and the right materials to do it correctly. Now, the ceiling in my workshop, in my garage, is plasterboard. I've actually bought a relatively cheap white paint, but before I'm gonna use the white paint on the ceiling, I'm actually gonna use a primer on the plasterboard. It's specially designed for plasterboard, and I hope 2 coats of the primer would be sufficient for the white paint to go on. The primer I've got is a latex emulsion, so I think it will do the job just fine. I will try to find an equivalent for you guys in the UK and in US. I will try to link some links down below for Amazon, so more or less you know what I'm using. Obviously these are based in Poland, but I'm fairly confident you can find the same thing in your countries as well. Now, when we get to the walls, things get a little bit tricky. What I've got on my walls, it's not plasterboard, it's not plaster, it's actually cement render. It does have a concrete look like to it and structure as well. I'm not gonna plasterboard it all around, mainly because of lack of funds really, to be fair. But it's a solid thing, it's a solid wall. All in all, it looks okay, it doesn't look brilliant. The only thing I'm worrying about, because it's not nice and flat, it will attract some dust to it. You actually need to seal the wall. So if you've got a concrete render on your walls, or even acrylic render on your walls, I would suggest a special sealer for that. The primer would definitely not be strong enough and it may not do the job correctly. Hence, I've actually bought a special sealer to put it on the walls. I think 1 coat will be enough, and when I do that, then I will apply the primer to the wall and at the end the white paint. What else I will be using? Well, a handy dandy pole. Pole, get it? I know, it was weak, wasn't it? Some paint rollers that will go on top like that, so it's easy for me to reach the high ceilings. Obviously in the tight spaces in the corners I'm going to use a brush and a foam roller. If you haven't done much painting for some reason, I don't know why, because it's a lot of fun. Oh, is it? You're going to have a tray for your paints or for your primer, anything like that. Now, as you can see, it's in a fantastic condition. It's actually not mine, it's my dad's. But I will give you a pro painting tip. Plastic bag. Put it over like so, so you don't actually have to spend time washing your tray. Then you're just going to fold it backwards, put it in the bin, job done, and your tray will be like new. I need to tell this to my dad. First of all, I'm going to use the smaller roller just to go around the perimeter, around the edges, and after that I'm going to return with the large one to finish the main area. In this particular case, I'm not really too fussed of going over the wall, as that will be sealed and primed later on, so that will not be an issue. Remember, at this stage you are not painting the ceiling, so if you can see through the plasterboard and all that, that's fine, don't worry about it. Okay, now it's time for the big boy. And just like so, you continue with the whole ceiling. Okay, so the first part is now done. I've put the primer on the ceiling, first coat, and now I'm going to take care of the cement rendered walls. Now, as mentioned before, I'm going to use something different here. It's a special sealer. Only one coat will do. When this will be dry, we're actually going to use the same primer that we did on the ceiling. So 2 coats of primer on the ceiling. On the rendered walls, we're going to use the sealer and then the primer. And after that, we'll be able to use the normal paint and have really decent results. So as mentioned before, I'm going to try to show you this. Hopefully you're going to be able to see it. Obviously it's not nice and smooth surface. So we need to take our time and make sure that the sealer goes onto the wall correctly and it covers it nicely. For that I'm just going to be using these hairy rollers that will go into the nooks and crannies really well. Obviously the smaller ones to get in the corners and smaller places, and then the main wall with a bigger one. What you have to be careful of, the viscosity of this is quite similar to water, so don't put too much on the rollers, otherwise you're just gonna splash it all over the place. So let's get started. This stuff doesn't leave any residue on the plastic tray, so I'm just gonna pour it directly without any cover. As you can see, it's milky white, viscosity similar to water, but on the wall it's actually not white, it's transparent. Just make sure you get a decent coverage and all the nooks and crannies are filled as well. Okay, so the next step has been completed. The ceiling, that's more or less done. I've used the primer on it, 2 coats, and it looks absolutely fantastic. To be fair, at one point I was thinking not to put the normal white paint because it looks so good. But obviously we'll put 1 coat of white paint on it, white emulsion. Now the walls, that was a little bit more tricky. As you remember, I've put the sealant on the walls as these are cement render, and that went okay. I probably should have gone with 2 coats, but I only did 1. And on top of the sealant, I've put the primer that I used on the ceiling as well, and I went with 2 coats. I have to say it looks pretty decent. In some areas I still got some darker spots, and probably if I use 2 coats of the sealant and then the primer, I would probably have better results. But hey, it's not too bad at all. The tricky part was actually getting in all those nooks and crannies. It was an absolute nightmare to paint with a roller. And to be fair, the best one to use was just a brush, but in an area like this, it took forever. So a pro tip from me, if you don't have a wall or ceiling or whatever that is nice and smooth, and you've got something like I've got a render with nasty voids and all that, use a spray gun of any sort. That will be so much quicker and so much easier. I do actually have a sprayer, but unfortunately, because of the move, I could not find it. I spent like 2 hours looking for it and I just gave up. I don't know what I've done with it. I can't find it anywhere. But hey, now it's time for the final part, which is just putting the white emulsion on. Ceiling, definitely just 1 coat will be more than enough. On the walls, we'll see. I'm thinking potentially 2 coats on it to get a nice even surface, but we'll see how it goes and I'll let you know in just a second. In the end, I had to put 2 coats of the primer on the walls, and then I've put 2 coats of the main white paint on top of the walls. I'm not going to show you that because it's just me painting, and that would just be such a boring video. So just a recap. On the ceiling I have put 2 coats of primer and then 1 coat of paint, and I have to say the ceiling looked absolutely perfect. With the rendered cement wall, well, that was a nightmare. As you can remember, I've used proper sealer on the walls and I only done 1 coat. Thinking about it, I probably should have done 2, because after sealing it I had to do 2 coats of the primer to get the best result. So probably 2 coats of the sealant and then 1 coat of primer would be probably, in my eyes, better, as the sealer is a lot cheaper than the primer. So, you know, that would be the best way to go. And on the wall I had to put 2 coats of white paint. Now, why was it the problem? Is the cement render and the voids in between. Don't get me wrong, at this point it's not perfect. If I had a sprayer, this job would be a breeze, but unfortunately I don't know what I've done with my spray. I can't find it. So yeah, it took a while to actually paint these walls, and they look just fine. Nice white colour, exactly the same as on the ceiling, so there's no different colour shades or anything like that. The only thing is, sometimes because of the how rigid it is, you think, you know, it's darker here or there, but it's just the way the surface is. In a way, it actually makes an interesting view. But yeah, I wanted it white, it's white, same as the ceiling, so I'm happy with that. In the next part of upgrading my workshop, you're gonna see me installing some lights. They just arrived, so I'm really keen to put them up there to see how good they're gonna be, and if I will be able to get rid of these 2 massive lamps that are behind the camera. And that will save me a lot of space and hassle in setting that up. But hey, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and again, I'm going to take on a short tour with the camera so you can have a look how it looks now.